Okay, I think that we just had lunch, and you can tell everybody's kind of like feeling relaxed, having a good time. And well, as you can hear from the applause and all the attitude that we have here, we're going to be having a blast today. Welcome to the performance testing panel. We are going to be discussing all your questions and all your whatever keeps you up at night regarding performance testing. I expect some discussions among you. We already started a few AI, non-AI, and stuff. Damn, it was like 2 minutes that I didn't talk about AI, but okay, I was trying to avoid it. So before we begin, the rules for the game, everybody, you can see here on the corner, we have the Slido code. Please access it, share your questions. And for the people that are looking and streaming, joining us through the stream, you can see down here in the screen is the Slido code. Please open it up, share your questions, upvote the questions that you want to see answered, and please make these people suffer a little bit because they are so much of an expert that they never have a tough time. For the ones joining, if you want to send your questions, use Slido and clear up all the doubts that you may have or that you want that these performance engineers fight about. So I will pass the microphone so that I will let my panelists introduce themselves and tell us your name, what do you do, and any other relevant detail about you that you would like to share. No particular order. He was next to me.
Hello, my name is Antonio. I've been working as a performance test engineer for about 15 years. Right now, I'm working with Mahindra in Canada for a US company, retail company, a big one. And right now, I'm doing Citrix. I don't like that much, but it's what it is. Thank you for the invitation, Leandro, by the way.
Hi, my name is Lisa Waugh. I've been a performance tester off and on for more years than I care to count. I'm actually responsible for the test automation and test selection for the company that I'm in, and we'll have fun today.
Oh, yes, we will.
Hey, folks, my name is Kaushal Dalvi. I've been in the performance engineering space for about 18 years now, and currently I lead the performance and resiliency teams at a company called UKG. You might have heard of Ultimate Software and Kronos. UKG is both of those companies coming together.
Lee Barnes, Chief Quality Officer at Forte Group. I'm responsible for the quality engineering services. I've been involved in performance testing for quite a long time. I spend a lot of time now trying to convince organizations that performance testing at the end of release cycles is way too late and try to get it introduced earlier and more continuous.
Oh my God, that's still a struggle, right?
Crazy.
For the people here in the audience, raise your hand if you're still struggling with performance testing being done at the very last moment before releasing into production. Do you? Yeah. Oh, no, not that many hands. Okay, come on. People in the audience, if you're watching us, also give us a thumbs up on some reaction. If you have been experiencing that, Lee, that's sadly. I think that will never go away. So, first discussion. Let's just start with that. What recommendations could you give to avoid that? And we will start with the one that brought that hot potato here. What do you do, Lee, to help on those situations?
Well, a very common symptom that goes along with that performance testing, primarily just to check the box and say they did it. They're not thinking about the value it can provide. They're not thinking about the risk that it could mitigate. And they probably haven't been bitten bad enough, unfortunately. But, talk about, what are the options if you find issues that late? They're not good. You delay release, you delay delivering value to your customers, or you get hit by that freight train. So just talk about the advantages of, we're not running system level performance tests upstream, but to understand at a component level, at a subsystem level, what performances look like, trending that data over time and looking for anomalies, there's a huge amount of value there. And, some are, certainly ones that are adopting continuous testing in general, I think are more open to that because it's just adding another ability to, what they're checking as part of the way they deliver software.
So one thing that I think that confuses people about performance testing is they think performance testing is always load testing.
Yes.
And it's not. So the way to introduce performance testing earlier is to just track what your build tests are doing in terms of response time. Because if your response time is bad with one or two users that you're using for a build test, then it's going to be even worse when you load it up to a couple of hundred people. So the simplest thing to do is to just start tracking it at the build time and have pass fail on one or two users. You don't have to set it terribly tight, but have pass fail and look at the numbers. And don't wait until the end when you're doing the big load test to call it a performance test.
I'll jump on that train and add one more thing on top of that. Us as a performance engineering group, and most of the times when I talk to other performance engineers, the focus has always been on the back end. One thing that we've realized was there was a lot that we were leaving on the table within our company as well, where we could extract a lot more by focusing on the front end, especially with the boom in the JavaScript frameworks. Everything is becoming JavaScript pretty much. Even mobile apps are becoming JavaScript. So just through a single user test, through Lighthouse or other similar tools, we are able to get a lot of value out of it, and without a lot of investment, a lot of time or tooling investment.
Right.
I think sometimes it's really difficult to show the value of early stages or adopting early stages performance testing task. I think it's part of our labor or work to show the benefits of implementing this kind of test strategies to get results in the early stages. And that will help us to avoid this kind of hurry up, test it now, and falling into a pitfall.
Yeah, I also still can't believe that that's a struggle that we are still dealing with, that performance testing is pushed to the very end and it's confused with only load testing. I have been shouting for 7 years now all over the place that performance testing is not just load testing. Thank you, Lisa, so much. And that it should not be done at the very end. It's not just trying to bring down the system. We have a saying that performance should scale for one user. More than 80% of the performance testing projects happen for one user. Why aren't we filtering that as early as possible instead of just like, I know it's super fun, script, load. Yeah, it's fun, but it's not the most useful situation that we should do. Anyone has an idea here? Want to refute anything that was said? Proposals? Because we have as well some of the crazy questions that the audience is sending. Why is crazy? Because the madness that we have right now. Let's take that first. Of course, AI. The question is from Ravi Patel. Ravi, thank you very much. Is Ravi here on the stage? No, it's remote. Ravi, thank you very much for the question. Let's torture the panelists with it. Ravi asks, how can AI or machine learning improve performance testing? Anyone ideas? I think Kaushal is already jumping at it, yeah.
Yep. So we have a bunch of different projects going on for both ML and AI, or one of each. With machine learning, for example, one of the things that we were struggling with was figuring out how to place tenants in different environments, production environments. There are different clusters, sizing of different types of servers, etc. And people had built intrinsic knowledge. They had become subject matter experts through years of doing it, and they kind of knew, and SRE groups knew how to do it. But there was always a little bit of guesswork involved in all of this. So one of the projects that we started about 3 months back was bringing in all of the data that we have access to, just raw data, and started to put it together in. We actually used the tutorial that Tariq King does over here with the Veka tool. And literally as simple as that, we took the Veka tool, we took all of our data, and we started playing around with a bunch of different algorithms to see if, and we classified our outputs as small usage, medium usage, high usage, very high usage, of where a particular customer, after we have observed them for 2 years or 3 years, what is their usage pattern like. So we took all of the data that we have available at the beginning. At this point, we don't know what their usage is going to be like. Put that in the model to be able to predict, are they going to be low, medium, high, or very high. After 3 months of working with the model, playing around with it, we have reached about 72% accuracy on the model,
Oh, wow.
which, if we did not have access to a subject matter expert, it feels like a good place to be. There's still a few more things that we are going to try out on trying to improve that model, but that's where we have created one model which we are going to start putting into use in production real soon.
This isn't particularly AI per se, but it is automation. And it's an area that's often overlooked. We script our tests and we have them automated, but you can also use machine learning and or AI to consolidate the test information and generate the report and do analysis on it. And that's a piece that I don't think people think about, because if you think about it, yeah, the test takes a long time to run, but while the test is running, you're doing other things. You're not sitting there watching the test run for 3.5 hours.
Depending how bad it is.
Well, usually if it's running 3.5 hours, it broke before that, right?
Touche. Yeah.
So if it ran the full 3.5 hours, it probably ran fine up until the last iteration or two. So otherwise, people were screaming at you because the system went down. So one thing that we did, and this wasn't AI, this was just using a robotic process automation tool, was after the test was finished, we write all our results out to a cloud object storage or an S3 bucket. The bot would kick off. It would download the information from the from cloud object storage or the S3 bucket, import it into this manually with, generate all the graphs that we use, and then write it to bots and send a Slack message saying, the test results are ready. And it saved, every time we run these tests, that's 30 to 45 minutes worth of work, because you got to wait for the downloads, you got to do them one at a time, different pages or the different worksheets in Excel, and the Excel format would generate the graphs automatically. And then you had to upload it to Box, and then you had to send thing. This way, all of that happened, and you just needed to go look at the results of it. And it works very reliably, and it saves a bunch of time.
Yeah. Faster and more efficient, right?
And more consistent, because you didn't accidentally import the wrong load level into the wrong page in the Excel worksheet. I mean, nobody's ever done that.
No, never. It doesn't happen, right? Any other things that you're breaking with AI? Antonio, I think you have some ideas. Lee, go for it.
Yeah.
I think probably one of the biggest opportunities that we're looking at is just a more strict and accurate results and analysis. I think as humans, we're all trained on what to look for, right? We start with the symptomatic metrics, and then we kind of dive down into the metrics that are closer to the root cause. But there's a lot of things I think that we miss, especially if we're testing upstream. We see a little blip or this, and probably just ignore it. But AI is really good at identifying patterns and starting to feed that result continuously into the model and start to identify things that we wouldn't find until they became a much bigger problem.
Funny thing that you mentioned that. Last time when Leandro, you and I had spoken, I had mentioned that we are going to try to do something like this. And as of right now, we have that working across the board, across the company, where what we do is we had enabled the rest of our engineering organization to run performance tests using K6. And
Why K6?
idea there was it was very engineer friendly, easy to get started, easy to incorporate in the pipelines, and like both of you mentioned, like you don't have to have the perfect environment broad like and have the perfect load test. You could start with as simple as one user or bump it up to whatever you need just to get that steady information about are you introducing any regressions, so on and so forth. The layer that we added on top of that was with Vertex AI from GCP. At this point, we have a history of everything that has been run. And now anything that Kesik spits out, we are able to put that into the LLM, fetch the right context, the historical context, put that in the LLM, generate two levels of summaries, a quick executive summary, which is like 3 to 4 lines. And then we have a very big prompt that asks the LLM, look at this, look at it from a performance engineering perspective, give me areas that I should be looking out for. Are there any improvements that can be made? And most of the times, what we've seen is we have 40 different performance engineers. There's people who have been doing this for
40?
20. Yeah.
Oh, you have a lot of performance engineers.
Oh, this is
It's been a
across
while
the
since
globe.
last time
Across the
I've seen
globe.
that many.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Across the globe. Yep. And there's people who have been doing this for 25, 30 years. And what we've been seeing is the kind of outputs that it is producing is something that we would have recommended looking at those case test results. And teams are coming back and telling us that it's really helping them out because now they don't have to wait for us to come and help and interpret the results for them.
That's a very big functionality that if any performance engineer here or tuning in with us, generating those reports, comparing the runs that we had in the past against the last run that we are doing, it's always an interesting pain that I like that approach, just AI it. And I'm sure it's not like 100% always flawless.
Yep.
But it's probably way better than all the pain that we always had. But sorry, Antonio, your turn. I know that you're dying too.
Early this year, I just give a talk about how to convert or migrate scripts. AI is really good to migrating scripts. You have one script probably is legacy, and you want to run it into another tool or in the same tool, I don't know, or you want to document it. The script also helps a lot the AI. In the reporting area, probably I haven't had that hands-on it, but what I have done is I have created some Python scripts that can help me to analyze faster the data because the tools that we have, open source mainly, they don't have very good reporting, how to say, the report that they generate is probably is not that good. But if we create, and we have the AI for sure, and it can help us to create some Python scripts to see the data into different perspective, it might help us to analyze in a different way that provide value or even create more fancier reports.
Yeah.
Some of the, as well, I'm going to share some of the stories of what I've been playing with AI, mostly through Cursor, where similar to what Kaushal is mentioning, like analyzing what are the patterns. I think that anyone here, raise your hand if you had trouble predicting what's the production pattern of utilization. What should you simulate, right? I see many of you nodding. Yeah, all the pain. Because it's not pretty. Just like saying like, hey, what's like a busy Friday afternoon pattern looks like? Pwah. Okay, cool. You gave me the numbers. Can you put it on a scenario form for a K6 script? Pwah, there it is. So the efficiency on some of these transactions, especially now with the MCPs integrations that we can invoke from this part of the code, from another. I'm going to also take on Antonio's visualization and reporting situation. Grafana, as an example, as a visualization platform, you can generate the dashboards with JSON code. You can ask the AI, like, hey, could you generate the best panel for this situation? I'm going to report to the CFO or I'm going to report to the developer. What would you suggest me? Okay, I like it. Go and create it. There you have the JSON file. You not only have dynamic data on reports, but you can also have dynamic reports, which is also how many here have spent hours building a report when whoever is on top is asking like, I need a report, right? Everybody's almost crying in the audience, but bad memories. I'm sorry that I brought those back, but it happens. And some things that I think AI already helps us if you know how to plug it. For the question, I would say to Ravi, start getting on MCPs, integrating. Kaushal is pretty much what you're doing. You're integrating the data from some other sources. And the way in which you can create things with the right data from utilization patterns, you can just like, yeah, create a script. Oh, what tool? I don't care. Just do it for K6, just do it for JMeter, just do it for this other. And I think thanks to AI, we may be getting pretty soon into true tool agnostic capacities, which is amazing for us performance testers. Tool vendors can be a little bit worrying, but this is going to be really, really powerful to whoever wants to leverage AI.
Yeah. I do have one more AI project. Before we
Everybody
go back
wants,
up
yeah,
to-
yeah, yeah, go for it, go for it.
So this one has not worked out well yet, but something that we are trying is UKG puts out a lot of features, right? So there's always a question, is this something that should be performance tested? Because even though there are multiple performance engineers across the globe, it becomes difficult to align time and find out, a quick meeting also will take up time for hundreds of such features, right? So that has always been a struggle for us. We had senior engineers who would quickly just look at a Jira story and be able to say, yep, this should be performance tested, or no, this is just a UI change, it's not going to have an impact. So with that, we have generated a history through years and years of having that information in Jira, because there's a Jira label now where a subject matter expert has put their opinion in. So what we are trying to do is extract all of that, put it in a RAG, and try to pull the right context, that when the next story comes in, to try to pull the relevant matching stories from the past and see what the performance engineer's take on that was, and give it a thumbs up or thumbs down, performance testing needed or not needed.
I think you just mentioned something important, the right context, the right data, because you cannot just throw garbage data to the AI and figure it out. You need to give it a hand and have good data, good structure. Lisa.
So as we're able to move into agentic AI, one of the things that I'm hoping will come about is that we've already got the test analysis being compiled. AI can look at the test analysis and go, hey, this test load had an issue, figure out what time frame that was, go over to the monitoring tools for that time frame and go, oh, the database had a blip then. That was an anomaly. It wasn't due to the load. It was just some external thing that was going on. We don't have to worry about that. Or, oh, we crashed the database and we do need to worry about it. Yeah, been there, done that, haven't we all? So ideally, as things progress, we'll get to that point where I don't have, because today I would call up my SRE and go, hey, tell me what was happening during this time frame. The performance crashed and we don't know why. And then they look at it and tell us why. If we could get the AI to do those final steps, that would be wonderful. To do the problem, basically doing problem determination.
I think that now with AI capabilities, you may have that information even before the test has finished. Like, hey, by the way, this happened. Get a message or automate something. The possibilities are going to be crazy. I'm curious what we are going to be talking about next time. But so we have been almost half of this panel just AIing. Let's, Ravi, thank you very much. I knew that this. They have been performing really good. But we have another question from Ashley. Thoughts on how quality engineers can become more security focused? Because in performance, we have some security situations. Do you have any recommendation how we can get on security a little bit? Performance, load testing especially, borderlines at times with attacks, hacking, things like that. Any thoughts, any ideas? Have you been playing with any of that lately? You have? Okay, Antonio wants to go for it.
Go ahead, no, go
Okay.
ahead.
Well, it happens that exactly what Leandro was saying. Sometimes there is a slight
Blurry line.
the blurry line in between load testing and security testing. It had happened to me that we had this issue with the system was responding really good. Suddenly, we find out that all the 200 responses were throwing an error inside the JSON payload. So for
Good
us,
responses, but error.
exactly. And so sometimes we need to analyze this borderline and understand that probably we are crashing something in the backend. So sometimes it's really difficult to understand, but I will recommend you guys to see if when you are doing a load test and this load test is looking so good, probably you may wondering why. I don't know.
Lisa.
Yeah, so I don't know that I have recommendations about what to do other than just partner with your security testing people. But what we used to do was take our API tests, and that would be the starting point for the security test. And then they would take our API tests and modify them to have the different payloads and things. So to do SQL injection, different send invalid payloads and things. And we're doing some of that on negative testing, but not to the extent that they do it with security testing. But there's a way that you can collaborate with and give them a leg up on their security testing so that they're not starting over from zero on understanding the app.
Not really something specifically around security testing, like you mentioned SQL injection and those. We have a security team that does that. But since you mentioned the word attacks, one thing that popped up in my mind is what we have started doing more of is resiliency and chaos testing and creating attacks at state level, turning things on and off on purpose, turning machines on and off, processes on and off, see how the application reacts, flooding resources on purpose, flooding CPU, memory, disk, IO, and see how your application reacts, and network attacks, creating partitions, creating slowdowns on purpose, seeing how your application reacts to that. One, does it automatically heal? And two, if it does not automatically heal, do you have the right alerting? And three, do you have the right runbooks, playbooks, etc.? Because how are you going to recover from that? So we paired that along with what has been happening in security, but not purely security like SQL injection.
What's important about that is you need the load test already established in order to be able to do those things. And a lot of people think you can do those kinds of tests without having your load tests in place. And that's just not true.
No. Lee, something? Okay. You skip. I do vulnerabilities. Ashley was the one asking this question. Ashley, be knowledgeable a little bit of all these possible security issues that can pop up. Silly things that us performance and load engineers sometimes do not think about, and we start doing our load tests. And so do you know that some of these security components that avoid the SQL injection to happen when you're running a load test, you may be able to kill that component before the rest of the system dies. And there you have a path to SQL injection and do whatever you want. And just like that, there are many other vulnerabilities that you can start triggering. I have seen some organizations, because sometimes we don't know about possible backholes that our system can have. What happens if I overload the login system and the one that gives me credentials? Nowadays, with distributed cloud computing, I overload just that microservice that is letting me in, and somehow it'll spit a good login session variable, chain, cookie, whatever we are using, and then go and play around. So some things that we may not be very well versed in. Actually, yes, it's super important. Get together. I totally agree with you, Lisa. Get together with your security team. Like, hey guys, what could happen if just these services starts to get overwhelmed? Would something go down that is taking care of the port, keeping it closed, giving us access to the database, things like that? That in the past, almost everything broke at the same time. Nowadays, with distributed microservice and so on, we can be very selective on what is broken, and that blurry line that Antonio was mentioning gets dangerous, security and performance and load. So another one that I wanted to add, front-end performance, web performance, all the JavaScript that is out there. If you are not aware of all the possible vulnerabilities, yeah, pronouncing is like a mouthful, it can get interesting because sometimes those JavaScripts, just take a look at them and you'll find some interesting things like, oh, that's how it works, how the login process, how the keys are being handled out there in an open JavaScript. I have seen a few not so pretty things. Okay, but this is more like a performance testing panel rather than security, but actually very valid. Everybody, it's not only performance, be aware of security. You don't want to be that person that drops the database by accident, or not that it has happened to me. Okay, we have another one from Ravi. And this is a classic. Oh my God. I didn't see it coming. How could I? What are the best tools for performance testing? He was a little bit more careful. Modern cloud native applications. Any comments, suggestions? Because specifically on the cloud, there are other challenges. Good. Please.
The question is asking about specific tools?
The best tools. We all love those questions, yeah.
Yeah, I won't talk specific tools, but maybe talk about characteristics of tools that you need to look for. Because first of all, they change, but where do you need to generate the load from? Where are your users from? Are they coming from around the world over the public internet? Are they coming from corporate offices, in a local geographic area? What's the size of the load that you need to execute? These cloud vendors will make some very unreasonable claims, or sound reasonable maybe, but they can't all hit hundreds of thousands or millions of concurrent users. Sure, the cloud's unlimited, but their infrastructure in controlling that tends to break down it. So you need to understand what you're trying to do, what the limits of the vendor are, what scripting languages and tools do they support? Is it proprietary? Do they upload JMeter scripts? Can they generate scripts from HAR files? Just understand what you're trying to do, and then go look for the tool and the vendor that meets that.
And you're probably going to be doing what I call hybrid testing, where you're running tests. You're going to run a tool to generate load, and then you're also going to have a tool that's going to run UI tests and potentially from various different places around the globe, so that okay, the network connections from this, let's say Southeast Asia, and I'm just picking on Southeast Asia, are slower than the ones in Northern Europe, for instance, or whatever. See, as I load up again, how does that front end react? Does it get so slow that it becomes unusable? Because we've all heard everybody will abandon a website if it takes longer than 2 seconds for it to respond. I'm thinking that time is shrinking as the world gets faster, but you need to be thinking about how you're going to generate the load versus the user interaction. And you need to be doing those at the same time so that you're getting a true user action measurement.
Rather than the world getting faster, we're getting a bit. We can. Sorry.
I will agree. I think if you are measuring web performance, if you are measuring protocol level, if you care about latency, depends on what are you focused on. You might need to with those requirements, find out which tool will be the best to measure that, and in order to measure, to report it. There is no such thing as a best tool because we know that everybody has a different weapon of choice. So it might depend more.
Necessities.
And it will change next year.
Exactly.
Yeah, I want to add to that. Amen to that, Antonio. Yes, what's the best tool for eating? I always give that example. Well, are you eating pasta, soup, or a steak? You may need multiple tools for the steak. So there's no like one single one. Someone brought out the performance tutorial. I can't remember, a spork. Yeah, it's not the best tool. It can kind of play around, but it's. I've tried soup with a spork, and it's not the best experience, to be honest. But I like what you presented, Lee, because we need some characteristics of a tool. I think on the cloud, monitoring is way, way, way more important than generating the load and checking, because you will be able to notice and monitoring at every level: web performance, user RUM, real user monitoring, the backend, the cloud. If suddenly we're getting like a ton of pods happening in the backend, because the backend is ethereal back there, far from where we can control it. From generating load, yes, we're generating load, but how many pods do we have up there? How much are we spending on the cloud? Cloud native apps. I would dare to say more than response time and speed, you gotta be aware of the cloud spend. Because if you have a very bad process up there in the cloud, you may be going super fast because you hired a super big cloud and are happy to spend a lot on it, responding fast. But that's the other side of the performance. Not supposed to be super running. I always bring up the Hummer example. It might go be spending a fortune in gas on that thing. You don't want to be running on a Hummer, right? Any other comments? Shall we move to the next one? Oh,
One quick
Kaushal.
thought. Usually, for folks who are beginning, teams that are starting, I'd heard this about cameras at one point. What's the best camera to buy? What's the best camera? And the answer to that was, it's the one that you have in your pocket. The idea there was, if you are getting started, get started with something that you can easily go with versus finding that silver bullet, that perfect tool that's going to check off all of the boxes. That might lead you down a path that you end up wasting time versus just get started with something and get something going at least. But again, only for beginners, very, very beginners. I don't know if the context of that person. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
One thing that I will say is it's not a good idea for a company to let every application team pick their own testing tools, because those testing tools have ultimately got to integrate into the CI/CD pipeline that they're using. And so you don't want every application team building that integration for their tool. So it's better to standardize not on one tool. You can't standardize on one tool, okay? It's not possible. You're going to have a handful of tools any way you want to look at it, because you're going to have tools that are great for API testing, tools that are great for UI testing. You're going to have different tools for unit testing. You're going to have a handful. So don't try to standardize on a tool, but try to standardize on a small bowl of tools that they can choose from. But that way you're only trying to integrate a handful of things as opposed to the world, because there is a world of stuff out there.
Yeah, it can get out of hand. I do agree. Golden rule of CI/CD: never slow down the pipeline. If you go crazy with tools, you may kind of generate that. And yes, you may say, yeah, to eat spaghetti, I just need a fork and that. Not if you ask the Italians, you need a spoon as well to put the spaghetti inside. So you may need to mix tools. You most probably will have to. That's a very good one, where don't go crazy with the tools, but don't marry just one and get obsessed about it, because oh boy, I know teams that have fallen for that. Okay, Ravi, thank you very much for. I still can't believe that this question is still controversial and has to get clarification, but it's still out there. And there are tools that are good for some things, the pasta one, some others for the soup, for the cloud, for the local on-prem web browser. Some are better than others. I mean, I know one of my siblings likes to eat soup with a teaspoon because it's slower and easier. Well, it's the preference, right? To me, I like the biggest possible one too. But as well, it depends on preferences, needs, and your circumstance. So don't go blindly following a trend. Now, our amigo Rami here on stage, thank you for the question. And this is actually an interesting one that I haven't seen before with the last part. So, Pano from Rami, how do you approach performance testing challenges that need as much as a real world results as possible, like live video streaming and multiplayer gaming? That's an interesting one. Have you ever faced anything like that?
Yes, I can't share the name, but so for this particular situation, we drew on some experience going way back where we essentially had to build our own load testing client. It wasn't a standard protocol, anything that the tool would support, but given the risk mitigation and the benefit, we built our own load testing client. Of course, we used a real load testing tool to be the harness to execute that, to capture our results. And most of the tools will allow that. But again, that's something you need to look into. In this case, they had, there was it's a multiplayer game. There was a conversation that had to happen. They had to build kind of find people to play the game, right? And it just wasn't something that we're normally used to with a kind of a normal protocol level test. So we had to build a load test client that could handle that type of communication. We didn't rebuild the game, but we had to simplify the logic to the point where we could get that basic interplayer communication to happen.
And this isn't specific to video or anything else, but you want your load test to run in as close to a production environment as possible, always. You want whatever data sources you've got, database, NoSQL, SQL, cloud object storage, whatever, graph database, to be similar size to production with a distribution of the data similar to production. You're not ever going to get it exact, but something close. But you want it to be as close to production as you can. So the same number of pods, the same number of containers, that kind of thing. If you don't have that, you're not really testing production live. And I think that would hold true for video streaming and everything else. You would need to have the same size video files, the same number of video files that you had to go out and retrieve and things like that. So I think that basic premise that has always held true for load testing would hold true for that as well.
Antonio, I know you have a very good story around that.
Yes, long time ago, when I was working in Florida, we helped Hotstar to test about 10 million users. I think, yes, the Cricket World Cup. It was amazing, but again, they built a special production environment to do the test. Actually, they were doing just this kind of takens.
Was it the one that brought down AWS in that region?
Oh yes, we had to completely take one region AWS because we were using 1,000. I think it was the biggest AWS EC2 instances that they had at that time. Well, the thing is, they had to build this special production environment. They couldn't have because they are gambling with their reputation, right? Because it's something that probably 15 million people are going to see. But actually, it's critical. They go bad completely. So yes, what Lisa said is completely what they had at that time. They built a production environment alike, and they had to go live, test it, live stream. And there is no other way. I think if you are, especially with live stream, because live stream is the event and you want to see live and it's not like 5 seconds late, right? So you don't have a chance probably at that time.
I as well have a story. Believe it or not, was my first ever big project in performance and load testing. It was for a multiplayer video game online. On Facebook, not from Facebook, but it was hosted on Facebook, and it was Scrabble, and the scripts had to play against each other. I'm talking about 2008 or 9, where we had to come up with like a small AI routine of course, we were using Load Runner to give you some context, and the Load Runner on those days, yes, it could take Java, but was not the best, and the AI was built on Java to play Scrabble against itself. Oh, how do we communicate the Load Runner that manages the front end of the Facebook interface with that Java Beans or something like that we ended up developing? We created an intermediate API with a totally brand new protocol for ourselves. We created like a GET request that had in parentheses all the rows, which ones were empty, and you see a bunch of commas where was a letter, and you get a response, and the players were playing against each other. It's a challenge, and I do agree almost always, because a specific game, I know the PlayStation Network has some standards you can share with some components, but you also almost always have to get into weird waters and templates to pull video game and video streaming. We know some friends as well, Abstracta, that they had to develop a specific, it's a plugin, right?
Mhm.
A specific plugin to be able to simulate video from JMeter. So, and it was as well a challenge because no one else has done that before. Warning, it's super entertaining when you get these projects, but it's challenging, and you may end up not much hair and stuff like that. So that can happen. Any other? No, we have I think we can tackle one more before we call it a day. We still have quite a few questions. I'm happy. Let's try to get more, but okay. We have a lot of this person is so popular, Mr. or Mrs. Anonymous. My organization currently has no regular performance testing. Okay. And this is a good one. Always important, always a struggle. How do you get leadership to understand the need for performance testing? Tips, please.
So I don't know that I would tackle getting leadership to understand it. What I would do is I would start tracking performance on the tests that I do run and being able to compare them from run to run, because performance testing isn't load testing. They're different, okay? Performance testing is tracking the performance of any test that you run. So just add that to the testing that you're already doing and track it over time. Graph it, put it in a database, whatever, put it in a spreadsheet. And then when you notice that there's a problem, you'd be able to go to your management and say, hey, go to your team and say, hey, we have this problem. We need to figure out why this one call is running so slow, or why this one interaction is running so slow. Then after the fact, after you've resolved it, you can go to management and say, hey, this is what I've been doing. This was what it avoided. And then you have a conversation and you have a proof point to go to them and say, I really do think that we need to implement some additional load testing to make sure that the application runs better under load or under stress. But you can add performance testing to any testing you're already doing just by tracking the response time.
So I spent the first 5 slides of my tutorial that I did yesterday talking about this, how to build consensus and build allies within your organization at different levels. It doesn't just have to be leadership, through product partners, through engineers, etc. Long story short, the TLDR of it was, one, engineering is all about trade-offs, right? No one is doing it on purpose. No one wants, I'm not going to do performance engineering and I want bad results. No one wants that. Everyone has constraints on their budgets or a number of things. How do we make it easy for them to understand, all right, here's the risks that you're dealing with, here's what happens if we do run into this. And the easiest way to get that conversation to stick or to hit is if you are able to tie it to the money. If the folks, at least from my experience, what I've seen, the companies that are in e-commerce, the Amazons, the Walmarts of the world, where they have shown that 100 millisecond up or down can have as much as a 1% impact on revenue. Yeah, performance is going to become really important really soon. So if you are able to show that correlation, at least that's how I've had the most success, to be able to have that conversation and build allies.
Yeah, I agree. I think certainly building the evidence, what has not worked, and I tried early in my career to scare people into thinking they should performance test. They don't appreciate it. Yeah,
Sometimes it works though.
it. I haven't had as much success as I would have liked, but starting to show them evidence and then ask questions. Well, we've proven single user performance is good. We don't know where the breaking point is, or we don't know where performance is going to start to degrade. If we did this, this, and this, we could start to answer those questions. So start to kind of visualize the possibilities for them. And of course, you have to tie it to money, because if they're not doing it, there's going to be a cost to start doing it, and you've got to show the financial benefit.
I completely and totally agree with what you have said. I think it's really difficult sometimes for us to show or prove the value that we are adding to the organization, especially performance testing. But I completely agree that you can start with something as simple as web performance from Lighthouse and take the report and show to your managers. We need to do something about it. Probably it will be a good starting point. But yes, we struggle sometimes to prove the value of performance testing, prove that the investment that you are making in the engineer, it will be worthless, or it will be something good at the end. Something like that probably might be a good start point.
I do agree, big time, especially on the money language. Management usually is that, but not only money. And I want to add to Lee's comment that, how's the saying? You attract more bees with honey than vinegar, or something like that. Of course, selling the scare tactics, it's sometimes fun, right? But tell them the benefits. Yes, I know it's going to be requiring some investment, some money, but think about it. All the savings that we're going to have afterwards, more customers, faster delivery, more efficiency. Give percentage numbers. How faster is it going to be? There's a study out there, I think, in Amazon, how much it costs every second that it gets slower, how much they are not selling, and sell it like, hey, boss, we're going to be selling this amount more compared to Amazon, right? I mean, you can tweak the numbers a little bit to your situation, but improvement is improvement. Sell the benefits of doing performance testing. I know that the downsides can also be a big impact, but most of the time, even former smoker, drinker, and stuff, until you start to feel the consequences, you're like, it's not going to happen to me, right? That's, I feel like, where Lee is getting to, and until it bites you, you never pay attention to. So, okay, we have one last quick question that I am going to select from, not the bottom, but again, Mr. or Miss Anonymous is asking, and this is a very good one. As a QA leader, performance tester, panelist in Star East, really quick, short answer, easy. The best thing you have done for your team and your biggest mistake.
Wow, that's a deep one.
I will start. The biggest, of course, savings for the organization. I'm super proud. The organization did an evaluation, like, you saved us $1 million, right? And I was like, oh, did I? Oh, wow. Am I going to get any of that? Of course I didn't. Biggest mistake, I forgot to put think times or sleep times in my script, and I killed production once. And that happens.
The biggest mistake I ever made, because I can think of this easier than the other one, I didn't understand exactly what the API did, and I crashed the database because I filled it up.
Oh,
Now, this was not production. This was
okay.
this was a staging database, so it wasn't the end of the world. But they were like, "You filled up the database," and I was like, "I only did 10,000 calls. How could I have filled up the database?" Well, you wrote, 10 million rows. And I'm like, huh? So, yeah, it was, those numbers are probably a little off, but it was something like that where it took every word and turned it into a row in the database. So it was
Oh,
taking these
wow.
documents and converting. Yeah, it was, and I didn't understand that it did that. I was just going, well, I only did 10,000 calls.
Yeah, but each one of them generated
Yeah.
several
Yeah.
thousand rows. So
And so it filled up the database, and I was like, how did I do that?
I want to add in relation to Lisa's mistake. Many times we have that mistake. Oh, it's just a 500 kilobyte image. What trouble can that cause? When 1,000 people join at the same time, multiply. Be aware of those exponential situations, because otherwise those are other mistakes.
And maybe the best thing that I ever did for my team, and actually this was for a team whose stuff we were using, we were making a call to speech to text. It wasn't our API, but we were making a call to the speech to text API. And I found a performance problem in their service before they did.
Nice. Good, good. Okay, we have time for one more. You want to
Sure.
bring it on, Lee?
So I actually made the same mistake you did regarding
happens.
regarding think time. It didn't bring down production, but the results were terrible, as you might imagine, and they made it all the way up the chain. And there was a lot of decisions made on those results that had to be rolled back, and that was very ugly.
Not pretty.
Probably the best thing, finding performance issues just in general before they go live. I don't know if I have as a great number as you do in terms of dollars, but certainly finding big issues before it was too late.
For the record, I did not calculate that number that was given to me, and I was like, really? Was it that good? And yes, I got something at $50 Amazon gift card. That, woo. So, everybody, thank you very much. We are almost done with the ramp down of this panel. Thank you very much to the panelists. Thank you for being here. A small applause, please, so that you loved it, right? You loved it. Woo, woo, woo. Thank you very much, and you as well. An applause to you, panelists, please. Applause to the people. Yes. I hope that you learned a lot from our mishappenings and adventures and successes. Don't miss think times, and be careful with databases, right? Take care, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And everybody
you.
tuning, this is Star East 2025. I still have your questions. I'll try to keep up, and they're going to be shared with the audience. Probably we will do like a blog post or something. So we'll try to answer them. Thank you, everybody. Take care, and panel out. Bye-bye.